The political game in Islam disregards its own beliefs. Doctrinally, Islam is the only political religion in the world. Generally speaking, politics is not immune from lies and deceptions. Not only has Islamic politics not stayed away from lies and deception, but has gone even further and made them legitimate in some circumstances. Surah Ali Imran, verse 54, and Al-Anfal, verse 30 say, Allah is the best of deceivers. If Allah is the best of deceivers, this means that He will use His deception in everything, including politics. If Allah uses deception in politics, don't you think that His faithful servants will follow in His footsteps? There is no doubt that they will follow His politics. The legitimacy of deception in Islam has cost Muslims a great deal since the rise of Islam up until now. Deception opened the door to lying and political games, even within the Islamic community. The Quran also says that Allah legitimized lying. Surah An-Nahl, verse 106, teaches that there are circumstances that can compel a Muslim to tell a lie. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 225, encourages Muslims to deny their faith in Allah if the condition necessitates until the situation gets back to normal. Surah Ali Imran, verse 28, tells Muslims to be friends with non-Muslims until Muslims get to power and rule or do something against them. You see that the God of Islam encourages his followers to lie and live with dishonesty among others. As a result, lying influenced Islamic relationships and the judiciary system. The famous hadith writer Bukhari writes in his hadith number 857 of the book 49 in volume 3 that Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, said, "A man who brings peace to the people by making up good words or by saying nice things, though untrue, does not lie." Imagine what happens when the God and Prophet of a nation give license for lying. It is for this reason that taqiyya, or convenient lying, hasn't allowed sincerity to grow among Muslim nations. According to the Bible, only truth, not a lie, can create sincere and peaceful relationships. Lying and deception were legitimized by Allah, Muhammad, and Muslim scholars and became a part of Islamic faith and politics. What happened then? Deception and lying made political games unavoidable in Islamic politics and caused Islamic beliefs to be unstable. Because of political games, Muhammad himself changed the principles of Islam. Seeing that the Prophet of Islam changed the principles of Islam continually and without hesitation, his successors thus imitated him to the point of even disregarding Muhammad's commands and traditions after his death. These changes to the Islamic beliefs were imposed on Islamic people. The Bible rejects any kind of deception and lying. In the book of Solomon's Proverbs, chapter 14, verses 5 and 25, the Bible says, A truthful witness doesn't deceive, but a false witness pours out lies. A truthful witness saves lives, but a false witness is deceitful. The gospel also says in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2, we have renounced the hidden things of dishonesty, not walking in craftiness, nor handling the word of God deceitfully, but by manifestation of the truth, commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of God. The Bible clearly rejects deceit and lies. However, the Quran makes them an essential part of Islamic belief, leading to political games and chaos. The first example of political games in Islam is the changing of the direction in which Muslims pray. For about 15 years, Muhammad's direction for prayer, or Qibla, was Jerusalem. And he and his followers prayed 5 times a day towards that city. This was a time when he was still hoping to draw Jews to his Islam and accept him as their prophet. But they rejected him, since prophets had to come from the line of Isaac. Because of this, Muhammad disliked the Jews and did not want to pray toward the Jewish city of Jerusalem. He changed his prayer direction, therefore, from the one God sanctuary in Jerusalem to the Kaaba, where hundreds of idols were still being worshipped by pagans. Surah Al-Baqarah, in verses 142 and 145, tells us that Allah confirmed the change of the Qibla to please Muhammad. As a result, a significant belief of Islam was sacrificed to political game. The change of Qibla in Islam is nothing but an indication of the instability of Islamic doctrine. The true God would not ask his prophet to turn his face from the one God sanctuary to a temple of idols. The second problem is what Surah Al-Baqarah says, that Allah confirmed the change of the Qibla to please Muhammad. Whereas in a true belief, it is the prophet and the people that should please the sinless God, not God to please the motives of a sinful man. This saying in the Quran is not logical. What Muhammad did was a political game. Since he had lost his hope about Jews becoming Muslims, he decided to invest in pagans and draw their attention to Islam. For this reason, he gave up Jerusalem and chose Kaaba as the Qibla for himself and all Muslims. The second example of political game in Islam is to penetrate by peace, then rule by force. In the first 13 years of his preaching, Muhammad said, "Let there be no compulsion in religion," which is now 256th verse of the Surah Al-Baqarah of the Quran. At the time, he only had 150 followers. In the last 10 years of his life, when he had many more followers, Muhammad put himself in the position of the unquestionable political and religious leader, and therefore forced all people group in the Arabian Peninsula to become his followers. Then the language of the Quran changed from stating there should be no compulsion in religion to no religion other than Islam shall be accepted, which is stated in Surah Ali Imran, verse 85. This political game in Islam became the standard of many Muslim leaders after Muhammad, which has acted like a poison to trust and intimacy. as we go forward, you will see the negative effects of it on every aspect of life. The third example of political games in Islam is the use of manipulation for power. The constant changes brought about by Muhammad in his approach toward others meant to his successors that a Muslim leader has the authority to do everything he wants. Muslim leaders who came to power after Muhammad, Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, and Ali, had inherited the political instability from Muhammad and learned that they could change everything in Islam based on convenience. His son-in-law Ali claimed to be the only legitimate leader, but the father-in-laws and the brother-in-law preferred leadership by seniority. The tension among them led to the creation of Sunni and Shia sects, which brought on countless killings. The fourth example of political game in Islam is the change of the location of the Kaaba. Did you know that the political games and tension in Islam caused the change of the Kaaba in Becca or Mecca from Petra in Jordan to the present Mecca in Saudi Arabia? This happened in the year 64 after Hijrah, or the year 683 after Christ. The Kaaba of Petra was the place of pilgrimage for Hajj for Muhammad, Abu Bakr, Omar, Uthman, and Ali. They were all born and raised in Petra. They had never been in the present Mecca for pilgrimage. All Qurayshis and Hashemites lived in Petra. No wonder the present kingdom in Jordan calls itself the Hashemite. Muhammad was a Hashemite. It was in Petra that he claimed to be a prophet. The Kaaba in Petra was ruined in the time of Yazid ibn Muawiyah, and the new Kaaba was built in Saudi Arabia. The Jordanian people strongly hold to the claim that they are the only Hashemites. The Kingdom of Jordan has placed a huge flag at the border of Jordan and Saudi Arabia. The only word on this flag is Hashemite, which means we Jordanians are the only Hashemite, not you Saudi Arabians. Let me first give you references from the Quran and then from the Islamic and non-Islamic historical books on why the present Mecca cannot be the original Mecca of Muhammad. Then I will tell you why the Kaaba was closed down in Jordan but established in Saudi Arabia. The present Mecca does not match the Mecca mentioned in the Quran. The verses of the Quran about the Kaaba match the description of Petra instead of the present Mecca. Surah Ali Imran in verses 96 and 97 says that the sanctuary that Abraham built was in Becca. Surah Al-Fat verse 24 is speaking about the army of Islam that conquered the Kaaba, which was in the valley of Mecca. Only the Kaaba in Petra was in the valley, but there is no valley near the present Kaaba or in its surrounding areas. Also, the present Mecca does not match the historical evidence. You know that the pre-Islamic pagans also practiced the ceremony of Hajj. Early writings about the Kaaba say that it was built in a valley. Historians and archaeologists refer to many cities in Saudi Arabia with different pagan shrines before and in the time of Muhammad, but not to a city in the southern part of Saudi Arabia by the name of Mecca. How could a very important and large religious city, which was also on a significant trading route, be hidden from the eyes of historians and archaeologists? They did not write about it because it did not exist in Saudi Arabia. It existed in Jordan. All historical evidence shows that the major pre-Islamic pilgrimages for Hajj were always made to Petra, which had the black stone or Hajarul Aswad, and the Kaaba or Baytul Haram. The black stone played a major role in drawing pilgrims to Petra. 400 years before Muhammad, the Greek philosopher Maximus of Tyre said that the black stone was in Petra. The Greek encyclopedia Sauda also mentions the fact that the black stone was in Petra. Tabari, the famous ancient Islamic historian, says on pages 192 to 198 of his history book that Abraham and Ishmael built the Kaaba in a valley. On pages 712 to 713, Tabari speaks again about the childhood of Muhammad, playing with boys in a valley in the holy city. There was also a small stream next to the Kaaba. There are references to farmland, fruit trees, vineyards near Kaaba in the old writings, whereas it is hard to attribute any fertile land to the present dry land of Mecca. Near the present Kaaba, there is neither valley, nor stream, nor farmlands, nor fruit trees. History gives us more information that the holy city was surrounded by walls and mountains. The entry to the city was through two cracks or tanias in the rocks of the mountains. Muhammad entered the city through these cracks. The present city of Mecca does not have any signs of ancient walls, mountains, or rocks surrounding it, and no entry through the cracks of rocks. But all these descriptions match the present Petra in Jordan. The two mountains of Safa and Marwa are significant in Islamic Hajj. In ancient historical writings, there are two huge mountains in Petra that had idols and shrines at the top. People climb the mountains up many steps in order to worship the idols. In the present Mecca, there are only two very small man-made mounds that are called Safa and Marwa and are inside the mosque. Mount Hira had a cave where Muhammad spent a lot of time fasting and praying as a pagan before claiming to be a Muslim prophet. In Islamic literature, Mount Hira faced the city and was located in the upper part of Mecca. But today's Mount Hira is far from the Kaaba and does not face the city. Petra is to the north of Medina, and the present Mecca is to the south. But the historical books are saying to us that Qurayshi armies always attacked Medina from the north. Also, during the Battle of the Ditch, Medina was protected by a ditch between two mountains on the north side of the city. Muslim armies marching out of Medina to attack Mecca always marched north from Medina towards Petra rather than to the south towards the present Mecca. In other words, the actual holy city or Mecca was north of Medina, not south. Early mosques also point to Petra. All mosques should face Kaaba according to Islamic tradition. The mosques that were built from the time of Muhammad until the year 107 after Hijrah or the year 725 after Christ all faced Petra. During the next 100 years, new mosques began to point in different directions because of tensions among Muslim groups over the two Kaaba. In the year 133 after Hijrah, or the year 750 after Christ, the Abbasid government in Iraq captured Syria and made Baghdad the center of Islamic rule. From this point on, the Middle Eastern mosques started to pray toward the new Kaaba in Saudi Arabia. How did this change from Petra to Mecca happen? 3 decades after the death of Muhammad, which is the year 64 after Hijrah, or the year 683 after Christ, Abdullah ibn Zubair, the governor of Petra, rebelled against Caliph Yazid of the Umayyad dynasty in Damascus of Syria and announced himself the Caliph. Tabari tells us that Abdullah demolished the Kaaba and leveled it to the ground, took the black stone and moved to a remote area in the present Mecca. He did this in order to distance himself from the revenge of Umayyads and also to build a new Kaaba and place the black stone there for pilgrims' attention to the new Kaaba. He knew the heart of Muslims had to be wherever the black stone was. 3 Umayyad rulers died during this time, one after the other, causing internal problems for the Umayyad government to fight Abdullah for the return of the black stone to Petra. The weakness of the Umayyad government caused Abdullah to succeed in his endeavor to establish a new Kaaba, as well as a pilgrimage center and prayer direction for Muslims. In the year 68 after Hijrah, or the year 687 after Christ, there were different pilgrimages to different locations. Some went to Petra, hoping that the black stone would be returned. Some others went to the present Mecca because the black stone was there. In the year 71 after Hijrah, or the year 689 after Christ, the city of Kufa in Iraq rebelled against the Umayyad and joined Abdullah in promoting the new Kaaba. In the year 94 after Hijrah, or the year 713 after Christ, an earthquake destroyed much of Petra and the city was abandoned. Many interpreted it as Allah's denunciation of Petra and acceptance of the new Kaaba. Then in the year 128 after Hijrah, or the year 745 after Christ, another earthquake destroyed buildings in Syria and Jordan. As a result, all hope of returning the black stone to Petra was lost. In the year 133 after Hijrah, or the year 750 after Christ, the Abbasids of Iraq overthrew the Umayyads in Syria, and most Muslims in the Middle East began to pray toward the new Kaaba in Saudi Arabia. But there were still opponents to the new Kaaba in Mecca. Karmatians, who rebelled against the Abbasids and took control of Bahrain, were strictly against any pilgrimage to the new Kaaba and killed many Muslim pilgrims going there. In the year 930 after Christ, they invaded the present Mecca and removed the black stone and kept it for 21 years and did not give it back to the Abbasids. The removal of the black stone created catastrophe for the pilgrimage. Eventually, the Abbasids in Iraq paid a huge amount of money to the Karmatians to get the black stone back. The black stone was not a piece anymore, but was broken into several pieces by the Karmatians. Do you see how did political games and tensions changed even the most sacred center of Islam from Petra to the present Mecca? Do you realize that Islam does not have a solid standard? Every leader does whatever he likes. How can this unstable politics be beneficial for you? It cannot be. I want to tell you one more political game from Islam and then finish. The fifth example of Islamic political game is that the land of Israel belongs to Palestinians, not the Jews. Then Surah Al-Ma'idah in verses 21 and 22 says that Allah ordained Israel for Jews and it belongs to them forever, but not to Palestinian or any other group. Surah Al-Isra, verse 104 say to the children of Israel, to dwell in the Holy Land, and when the time of promise arrives, God will also bring many scattered Jews from various countries to Israel. Against the teaching of the Quran, you were taught that Jews have occupied Israel. Some Islamic governments and leaders have been sending millions of dollars every year to Palestinians, Hezbollah, and other groups to drive Jews out of Israel, the land which the Quran says God has given to the Jews forever. Isn't it heartbreaking that so much money is wasted on a lie when it could be used for millions of needy people in Islamic countries? Isn't it heartbreaking that many young people are stirred to get involved in terrorism against Jews just because of lies and political games? Muslim leaders have been keeping Muslims in the dark with their lies and political games. This has cost Muslim nations a great deal. You can only overcome these deceptions, lies, and political games by being awakened. Only through Jesus Christ can we overcome these political games.